Difficulties fixed. Hello and welcome aboard another episode of the Gallant Says podcast. It is very early, Tuesday, November 19th, 2024. The Houston Texans just took down the Dallas Cowboys 34-10 in Monday Night Football. I think it says a lot more about the Dallas Cowboys than it does about the Houston Texans. But let's talk about it. Here we go.
A radio show host in Seattle called Paul Gallant.
You are definitely living in the hindsight world today, Paul.
Do you feel there's been a consistent theme with the interceptions?
I think every interception really has a different story.
I was just kind of curious what Paul gets to see.
Grow, mother. Are you kidding me?
Paul Gallant, what the hell is wrong with you?
We all went into this one hoping that the Texans would finally get the kind of blowout that they had against the New England Patriots in Drake May's first start. Cooper Rush is under center. You've got all sorts of bad vibes coming out of the Cowboys locker room, ranging from the owner getting very pissed about people asking why he doesn't have curtains for his stadium and all the lighting that it has in the end zone, blinding his receivers, to Micah Parsons taking shots at head coach Mike McCarthy. Were they really shots? It doesn't really matter. There's just been a lot of drama going on in Dallas. So they looked ripe for the picking. And picking is exactly what the Houston Texans did. 34-10. A final score that's definitely a little bit more than the way this game felt, right? I mean, I think anyone who watched this and saw the Cowboys hanging around as long as they did into the fourth quarter, you had a feeling in the back of your head that maybe the Texans would blow this. But I don't want to sound like too much of a naysayer to open things up. So I'll just say this. The Texans are a better team than the Cowboys, and since they're a better team, they took care of business. I thought more than anything tonight that Joe Mixon is bailing this offense out left and right. They are not very good at run blocking. They're not. And yet, Mixon somehow, with his playmaking ability, finds ways to bounce to the outside, to break tackles. He had a 45-yard touchdown run. He had 3 total touchdowns in this game. The offense is basically Joe Mixon right now. They're turning around, handing it off to him, and they are hoping that he can make the most of what's there. He did that tonight against a Cowboys defense that I think looked sloppy and lost often in this game. Also, the Texans defense, they made Cooper Rush look bad. And he is bad. 32 of 55. I know some people are going to look at the total yards, 354 yards, and act like that's a big deal. He averaged 6.4 yards per attempt. That would rank 30th among all quarterbacks in the league. That's a bad number. He struggled. They sacked him 5 times. They deflected 10 of his passes. Could have intercepted well more than the one interception that they had. And a bunch of defensive players played well in this one. I thought this was Derek Stingley's best game of the year. He did a really good job in coverage against CeeDee Lamb, considered one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. I think he's a little overrated, but he's certainly a really good receiver. Danielle Hunter had 2 sacks. I thought that Danico Autry was all over the place, had a deflected pass. Jalen Petrie was all over the place. Henry To'oTo'o was all over the place. Kalen Bullock nearly had a pick 6. I think there's a lot of players on the defensive side of things that can look at themselves after this game and pat themselves on the back. Derek Barnett has the strip sack that he returns for a touchdown. The defense did what it was expected to do. And I don't know how they do against better offenses than the Cowboys on a night like tonight, but I felt like they did what they were asked to do, which is stuff a bad offense with bad vibes in a locker. So let's give them credit for that. But I've got some real questions about the Texans offense, and I think you should too. because, yes, Joe Mixon made a lot happen against this defense that was in disarray, but CJ Stroud did not. And sure, you can point at the offensive line. You can point at the play calling. We've been doing that all season long with CJ Stroud as far as some of the problems that they had. But Stroud's missing open guys. Stroud's interception that he threw at the Cowboys' 12-yard line, he missed Nico Collins. There was another third down play where the Texans, for whatever reason, decided on 3rd and short with Mixon running the way that he was running to call no huddle. They throw a pass to Tank Dell. The pass is inaccurate. Something's up. He is feeling pressure that isn't always there. He is hurrying his throws. He is more inaccurate than I think we all thought possible out of him this year. And I hate to nitpick, but I can't walk away from this game feeling better about the Texans offense. I feel exactly the same that I've been feeling about this offense every single week. And what's frustrating about this is the fact that everything just seems to repeat on a week-to-week basis makes me wonder if they are going to be able to figure this out. It is everybody. It is not just Bobby Slowick, who is a convenient person to blame, especially if on Friday he's saying groundbreaking things like football is football, talking about their struggles in the second half. But I mean, they struggled in the second half until the very end. They did. I mean, I'm glad that they went for the touchdown on that last drive, and hopefully that unlocks the offense going forward. But once again, in the second half, they were incapable of scoring until the very, very end. And at that point, I think you could have made the case that the Cowboys had quit. They started fighting every single play. Start off at their 35. How many times did Cowboy players start scuffles? I think at least 2 times, if not 3, on that touchdown drive that you had. Hey, I'll give them credit. They punched it in. Joe Mixon made some nice plays, but it took them until that happened to finally hit pay dirt. And this is a Cowboys team that I think is as close to quitting as humanly possible. They did not seem like they wanted to be out there. CeeDee Lamb was pouting the whole game based off of any Cooper Rush throw. Micah Parsons was doing some shit out there that I feel like were the signs of a man who's just frustrated out there. Who was it that he tackled? I think it was Robert Woods away from the play, clearly done out of frustration. And they still held the Texans offense in check. Is it Drew Scruggs at left guard? I don't know what it is, but it's frustrating. Let's read some comments here. What's up, Benny Football? Gerard Williams on Instagram at Sports Gallant about CJ Stroud. He definitely did better today for sure. CJ just needs to be calm and composed like last year. He looks like he's an actual rookie this year compared to last year. By the way, I was there, and 2/3 of the people in there were Texans fans, which was hilarious. I went to their game in 2014. This is the game where J.J. Watt got shaken off of Tony Romo at the very end. Romo throws a touchdown pass to Terrence Williams, and they win the game. And it was the same thing there. There were a lot more Texans fans at the Texans-Cowboys game in Arlington, which is weird because a lot of Texans home games against teams like the Lions, the Bills, the Bears. Texans fans are being outnumbered at the stadium. Whatever. I digress. Let's read some of your comments here. I don't want to sound like I'm bitching and moaning and being a negative Nancy. I feel like I have been giving off that vibe a lot, but I am not satisfied with what we saw from the offense in this win. They took care of business against a bad team that's about to quit. Credit is due to a degree, but the offensive stuff is happening every single week. And I got to be honest, I think it's really unrealistic to continue to expect Joe Mixon to bail you out. Joe Mixon every single week? That's what you're doing? You're turning around? It's a high school offense. So I know I'm nitpicking. I got high standards. I'm a perfectionist, blah, blah, blah. My parents never gave me credit for getting A's. My sister went to Harvard. I wasn't good enough. I'm still single because I think I'm going to date a supermodel. Blah, blah, fucking blah, blah, blah. All I'm saying is there's a lot left on the table, and they have to figure some of these things out if they want to beat a real team in the AFC. The Cowboys are not a real team. I'm glad that they won in a rather convincing fashion, but it took a while to get there. And there were moments where it felt like there was a chance for Dallas to win. And that should never happen with someone like Cooper Rush under center. All right, let's read some comments. Sneakers Most Wanted says, good win, but the Cowboys was trash. I agree. They suck. They're really bad. I don't know what Mike McCarthy's supposed to do with this team. I know a lot of people are blaming him. He's going to get fired at the end of the year. But what is he supposed to do with them? Hell, I'd make the same point for last year, their playoff loss to the Packers. What was supposed to happen? It wasn't his fault. No one executed. Everyone seemed to quit. And man, they have just been so wretched at home in that stadium that seems to be falling apart. They wanted to open the roof, and then 2 pieces of metal fell off the top of the stadium. They've got the curtains issue going on. They could put the curtains down for the Jake Paul, Mike Tyson fight, which was such a load of bullshit if you watch that. But they can't get it done for an actual game in the afternoon when CeeDee Lamb's getting blinded in the end zone. It is funny. Junior Broncos on Twitter says, Paulie G, the deep steel blue chews are flowing. Not really flowing for me. No, it's kind of a halvesy. VT, what's up, VT? 2 things. That mustache is glorious. And secondly, just because we're not winning the way we want to doesn't mean we can't win with an elite defense and a strong run game. That is a fair point. That is a good counterpoint. That's what the Pittsburgh Steelers are doing to a degree, although I don't know if the Steelers are actually running the ball successfully. Yeah, the Steelers, well, they had 34 carries for 122 yards against the Ravens. That's 3.6 yards a carry, 3 yards in a cloud of dust. Old school coaches would say, that's actually good. But the Steelers are winning with their defense. Are you going to win with your defense every single game? There were some lapses in this one. But are you going to win with your defense every single game, especially when you got that quarterback under center? Like, that's the big problem. I think that's why we're all so frustrated. We all think very highly of C.J. Stroud, and the offense just keeps on underachieving. Gerard Williams 08 comments on Instagram at Sports Gallant. The offense is not playing like a Super Bowl contender. We're lucky to be in the AFC South, to be honest. For sure. And that's why it always gets a little frustrating when D'Amico Ryans talks about the positivity in the same way that it was frustrating when Bill O'Brien talks about the good things that we should be asking about. The AFC South is an underwhelming, boring-ass division and has been ever since Peyton Manning left. And that was a really long time ago. That was 2012. And technically, he left in 2011 because his head nearly fell off of his neck. He almost came to the Texans. I guess he finally confirmed that on the Manning cast tonight. More comments here. Sneakers Most Wanted. Mixon is a machine. Mixon was great. And really, he has been fantastic as a running back. He's been great as a leader. I think he has earned that captaincy. I think there's some other guys in the Texans that you could argue maybe haven't. I think Andre Ware's rant about a certain screen pass for a touchdown to Nico Collins that was called back with Laramie Tunsil being too far downfield. Bro, how the fuck are you too far downfield? You know what you're going to run early on in the game. You knew what was going to come. Would have liked to see a little more Nico Collins, but it was good to see him back out there. He is definitely a difference maker. Bob Sweet says, you guys played great. You can't control who you play. You can control how you play, though. Sneakers Most Wanted. Hopes Mixon holds up. Yep, we all do. Stroud, meanwhile, per Sneakers Most Wanted, seems off, not accurate. SVT _ Eric04 says on X, Stroud was sloppy, saw it in his face that he didn't like the win. That's good at least. I don't want to hear that from D'Amico, though, and I know D'Amico's going to do it because D'Amico's such a positive guy, and you know what? There's a place for positivity in this world. I wish that I had more positivity. I wish that I would force some positivity from time to time. I'm a miserable prick, often, always nitpicking. Being a skeptic, it's a heavy burden because it lends itself to cynicism, and I found myself watching this game being way too annoyed with the game that they won rather easily, but it's because of how things felt in the first half. You're up 17-10 at halftime. Felt like it should have been by more because of that Stroud interception on the Cowboys side of the field. It took them a really long time to get that touchdown to separate. I mean, Brandon Aubrey hits that 64-yard field goal. It was, once again, a one-score game, and then they drive down the field. You get the key stop in the red zone. Bend but don't break, I guess, if you're taking a look at the yardage. I thought the defense did play well. I don't want people to look at that Cooper Rush stat line and act like Rush had a good game. But, I mean, the Cowboys were desperate in this one. They ran that awful fake punt where Brian Anger throws the football over the middle of the field and John Mechie tackles the guy. I don't know what they were doing there. Astros Flag World Tour asks, Paul, do you think CJ is playing with an injury? Texans radio reports he was on the injury list last week with a right hand issue. Generally, if a quarterback is banged up, he's going to play through it. So sure, that could be affecting him, but I don't think it's some injury that's holding him back. It really does feel like it's something up here, and I think that could be a byproduct of how much the offensive line has struggled, but something's up. Something is really up. World of Warcraft Spartacus says, nice Ron Burgundy you got going on there. Yeah, the mustache is very thick. Very, very thick. The Rhino one says it's coming fully and very powerfully. I feel more masculine just by being on this stream. It does itch. It does itch. Sneakers Most Wanted says, don't forget, Paul, the Texans had fun. I think they did have fun tonight. I think they did. They won in Dallas. You saw the team photo that they had afterwards. That was neato. That was fun. F is for friends who do stuff together. U is for you and me. N is for anywhere, anytime at all, down here in the city of Houston wearing deep steel blue jerseys and pants and helmets. More comments here. World of Warcraft Spartacus says, Texans just have to build confidence between this game and the next division games before the bye and get ready for the gauntlet. Well, the gauntlet's before the bye, right? Because it's Dolphins. Hang on, let me take a look at the schedule. I forget when the bye is all of a sudden. That's it, you're right. So, Titans, Jaguars, weekend off. Then they have the 3 games in 10 days. Dolphins at the Chiefs, Ravens. Ravens looking a little more human. Chiefs looking a little more human. A game against Dallas is just hard, I think, for most people to have their convictions shaken when you're going up against a team like this. And to a commenter earlier who had said, hey, you can only control who you're playing against. They did win in convincing fashion. I just wish the offense could get things going in the passing game. It's just struggling. Solomon Grundy on X says, I feel like I'm going to lose $100 on a drunken Super Bowl bet. Fuck it though, right? Let's see what the odds are for them. I don't think they're great, but I would imagine that they're getting better by the week. Probably not as good as you could have gotten before the Stephon Diggs trade. Let's see here. And by the way, mybookie.ag, promo code BET975. Super Bowl licks odds. Texans are plus 2,200. That's not bad. Chargers are plus 2,600. And then after that, odds start to get pretty big. Plus 3,700 for the Commanders. Lions are the favorites at plus 360. Chiefs at plus 460. Bills, who you beat, and they've won all these games since you beat them, plus 650. Wish they finished that game off in more convincing fashion. Definitely a different Bills team since they got Amari Cooper. Eagles are 4th at plus 780. Ravens at plus 810. The Niners at plus 1725. Steelers are at plus 1900. That's surprising that the Steelers have better odds. Packers at plus 1975. Vikings are tied with the Texans at plus 2200. Those aren't bad odds. Astros flag _ world tour says, Paul, I just logged on. Did you give your thoughts on that 3rd and 1 passing play? Should it have been a handoff to Mixon? You know what? I don't know what the play call should have been. All I know is I don't know why they rushed up to the line of scrimmage and called a play? Did they think that they had gotten the first down? And there was a referee who did signal first down. He had his hand going forward, and then it was overruled, I think, by the referee on the other side of the field. That's the only thing I can think of, is that Stroud thought they might overturn the call, ran up to the line of scrimmage, and then they called that play a passing play. But yeah, they should have called something other than that. That was a weird sequence, and it does make you wonder just about the entire operation. That's on Stroud more than it's on Bobby Slowick in that spot. If he's the one running it up to the line of scrimmage, I'm assuming that was a judgment call by Stroud. Could be wrong. I don't know what he said about that situation after the game. I'll react to what he had to say at his press conference on tomorrow's radio show and on tomorrow's live stream. But whatever happened there, it was certainly funky. Gerard Williams 08 said, it said 2nd and 10 in the stadium when we punted. My whole section was confused. Yeah, that would have been confusing. But the scoreboard operators, they generally are a little bit slow out there. Nothing against them. Sneakers Most Wanted. The defense put the Cowboys away because the offense is, Bobby might be a reincarnation of Bill O'Brien, just slightly better. O'Brien had his moments. For what it's worth, Deshaun Watson did like working with him, but I felt like the offense was a little bit complicated, just a little bit. I think the big problem with the Texans offense right now is just the same things, the stunts. It's a big issue. And their interior offensive linemen, whether it's Kenyon Green and Juice Scruggs, they just don't do a good job picking it up. And they're also not that good at run blocking. I think Joe Mixon made a lot of what happened in tonight's game happen on his own, just with his sheer ability. And, you know, that 45-yard touchdown that they had, the Cowboys, that whole drive looked completely lost. Really just to open the game. I thought the Texans did a good job getting them out of sync by playing with some tempo on that drive. I'd like to see that a little bit more. I mean, they scored a touchdown the first play of the drive, and they still ended up scoring. One of the reasons is that they didn't find themselves, as brought up on the broadcast, in 3rd and long situations, because their second down play calling is really bad, just from a yards per game perspective. More comments here. Ezekiel Tovar said they should have won by more. Hopefully the second half touchdown drought is over. That's all you can really hope for going forward. Gerard Williams 08 on Instagram. At the end of the day, we beat Dallas. I'll take it in any fashion. That's totally fair. I think I am guilty of looking past the Cowboys to a degree and the next couple of opponents before the bye, the Titans, the Jaguars. These teams blow, right? I can't believe the Jaguars haven't fired Doug Peterson yet. I don't think Brian Callahan's going to be the guy to make things work in Tennessee. These are scrub teams. Take care of business. Please take care of business. More comments here. How about the Cowboys' 64-yard field goal that never was? Yeah, Brandon Aubrey's a great fucking kicker. I know he slipped on that one kick, then he missed the first time I think he had ever missed indoors. He's awesome. That was a very routine-looking 64-yard field goal. I actually thought he was going to make it when they lined up for that, too. It's crazy. 63 used to be the record, and now everybody's hitting 64, 65. Like, I think Fairbairn, you could have him attempt from 65 plus or so. I will say for D'Amico Ryans, I did like that he was aggressive in a couple of fourth down spots. Didn't necessarily always like the play calls, but I felt like they were being aggressive in a way that they wanted to this game. But I also still did not feel like C.J. Stroud cut loose and swung away the way that he wanted to and had brought up at his press conference last week. More comments here. Daniil Hunter's in his bag right now, says WKDZD. Yeah, he was great in this game. And, you know, it took a while for the Texans pass rush to get to the quarterback. I mean, they didn't get any sacks in the first half, and the second half, that's when everything kind of got unlocked. They did it without Will Anderson, though, and, I mean, that does deserve some credit. You're doing it shorthanded. Hopefully Anderson's going to be back next week. This ankle injury is certainly a nagging one. But Hunter, I think, has a lot of skill. He's got so much strength because his big-ass biceps. They're fucking huge. Sneakers Most Wanted says Cam Akers would be a nice compliment to Mixon. I don't know about that. I think Cam Akers is a little bit overrated. I felt like everyone got a bit too excited about Akers being signed when the Texans brought him in this offseason. This is a guy who I felt like was a liability at times with the Rams. He put the ball on the ground a lot. And look, I mean, I don't know how he's doing with the Vikings right now. Did he have a big game? I'm taking a look at the Vikings-Titans game. I'll be honest, I didn't see a second of that one. Akers had 10 carries for 25 yards for the Vikings on Sunday. So you're not really missing any of that. Astros Flag World Tour asks on Instagram, last question, what did you think of on that space the Texans defense gave Cooper Rush for all those short passes he completed? Should they have blitzed more? No, his yards per attempt was shit. I feel like anyone who's looking at Rush having thrown for 354 yards, you're missing the larger point. He threw 55 times to get there. So he was averaging 6.4 yards per attempt. Take a look at the NFL statistical leaders in yards per attempt. I think yards per attempt is the best indicator of how effective a quarterback was over the course of a game. I know some people are going to tell you quarterback rating or QBR. Nah, fuck that. Yards per attempt. When I was 12, I used to look at this website called Cold Hard Football Facts, and they talked about how yards per attempt is really a good way to determine if a quarterback's being aggressive. And obviously, it's something where if you're watching the game, you'll be able to tell for yourself by watching with your eyes. But yards per attempt, I think, are a fantastic measure. And, I mean, he threw it 55 times to get 354 yards. He had 23 incompletions in this game. 10 of them were on deflected passes. The cushion was fine for a guy like Rush. They were daring Rush to try and beat them. And Rush, I mean, he tried to beat the Cowboys the best as he could, and he plays for them. That's not good, you know? Steakers Most Wanted wants the Jaguars to hire Bobby Slowick. World of Warcraft Spartacus likes Petrie on defense. Man, he got so fucked over on that bullshit, unnecessary roughness call. He put his shoulder into him. That was clearly his shoulder. I don't know what that ref saw, but that was a load of bullshit. Yeah, he put his shoulder right into him. Clearly it was his shoulder. What did the ref see there? I still don't get that one. He is a spark plug in the box. I think there are some cover things that he might simply just be limited in. But as a extra guy to throw up there as a blitzer, he hits hard. He's in the right place at the right time. You like what he brings to the table. He definitely embodies the swarm mindset that D'Amico Ryans want. What's swarm stand for? Special work ethic and relentless mindset. I got it. Ezekiel Tovar says an 11-6 win season. I mean, that's what my preseason prediction was. I feel like you should win the games against the bums you play the rest of the way. The Titans next Sunday. The Jaguars do have a bye to prepare for you. That's why it's surprising that Peterson hasn't been announced as fired yet. Maybe we'll get that tomorrow. The Dolphins, Chiefs, Ravens, that is a tricky stretch. And I definitely think all are on the table to potentially lose. But I definitely feel a little bit better going up against Kansas City and Baltimore after what we saw on Sunday. Ezekiel Tovar says that John Mechie is starting to show up more. He's been productive the last couple of games. Yeah, I've liked what I've seen out of John Mechie of late. I like that. He even made a special teams tackle. That was a good tackle that he had. I definitely think he can work on his blocking a little bit. But I really like what I've seen from him in the last couple of games. And good for him. It's a great story. He's a guy that everyone thought had some first-round talent. He falls to the second round because of the injury he suffers, and he gets non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I mean, shit, man. Beats it. He's out there. And look, he's definitely not one of the top two receivers for this team, but I like to see the guy contribute. Comments are torn on the Dolphins. Sneakers Most Wanted thinks they might be hard. Ezekiel Tovar says, I think the Dolphins is a toss-up. Kansas City and Baltimore, we might lose both. We shall see. I mean, that's a tough game. Always is a tough game, both of those teams. All right, guys. I'm running out of gas. We will be back at it tomorrow. I think I'm going to shoot for 3:30 for a live stream. We'll talk about what was said after the game. We will also have some other takes on various other subjects. If you haven't already, please subscribe and like this video on YouTube. YouTube is the one I'm prioritizing above all else. But if you're more of a Twitcher, on Twitch, at Gallant Says. If you're a Facebooker, we have that. Facebook.com/Paul Gallant Sports. On Instagram, at Sports Gallant. And also on X, at Gallant Says. That's where I have the biggest following, for whatever that means. That app is a hellscape shithole. I hate it. But hey, people talk about sports on it. So I have to keep using it. Also, it's available in podcast form. Apple Podcasts, Spotify. And you can get it on SoundCloud too, if you're one of those people. Anyway, until tomorrow, radio show at noon, stream hopefully 3:30. I am merely Paul Gallant. So long, farewell. Thanks for tuning in and have yourselves a wonderful rest of your Monday night.